Hello, and welcome back to another episode of our channel, where we delve beyond the headlines to bring you comprehensive stories of people who have left an indelible mark on history. Whether you are a history buff, a political enthusiast, or simply a curious soul yearning to understand the complexities of the modern world, you have come to the right place. Today's episode is not just another political biography. It's an exploration into the life of a woman who navigated through the labyrinth of power and ideology to rise to the pinnacle of political leadership. We're diving deep into the life of Angela Merkel, a figure so pivotal that she's often been referred to as the Chancellor of the free world, and for good reason. Her tenure didn't just affect Germany. Her influence rippled across the European Union and beyond, setting the stage for international politics in the 21st century. Angela Merkel was a woman of many firsts, the first woman to ever become Chancellor of Germany, the first from former East Germany, and the longest-serving leader in the history of post-war Germany. As someone who grew up behind the Iron Curtain, her life and political journey offer not just a personal narrative, but also serve as a living chronicle of the dramatic transformations that have shaped modern Europe. But why is her story particularly significant? For starters, Angela Merkel held the reins during some of Europe's most volatile moments. From the global financial crisis to the refugee influx, from dealing with authoritarian regimes to navigating through Brexit, her leadership has been a stabilizing force in times of uncertainty. Moreover, Merkel's story defies conventional narratives of political rise. Here was a physicist, a researcher, a woman deeply in love with science who transitioned into the turbulent waters of politics, almost as if by destiny. As we delve into her life, we'll examine not just the milestones, but also the nuances, the decisions that drew applause and those that attracted criticism. We'll discuss the philosophical underpinnings that guided her policies and the moments where she displayed her innate ability for pragmatic decision-making. We'll explore the woman behind the political persona, tracing her journey from the streets of East Berlin to the global stage. So, buckle up for an enthralling journey as we unfold the layers of Angela Merkel's life, punctuated by defining moments that shaped not just her destiny, but millions across the world. Part -1. The Making of a Leader, Early Years. Angela Dorothea Merkel's early years were shaped by a variety of influences that would go on to define who she became. Born on July 17, 1954, in Hamburg, West Germany, her childhood was affected by the geopolitical situation of the Cold War. When she was a baby, Angela's family moved to Templin, a small town in East Germany. Her father, Horst Kasner, was a Lutheran pastor, and her mother, Herlind Kasner, had been a teacher. However, due to their religious background in a state that promoted atheism, Herlind's profession was limited. Angela had a younger brother, Marcus, and a sister, Irene. Their home was not just a family space, but also a place of intellectual and theological discussions. Regular guests included theologians, philosophers, and dissidents who were critical of the East German regime. Angela quietly observed these conversations, learning about ethical debates, the role of the individual in society, and the delicate balance between morality and governance. East Germany was a place of paradoxes, a socialist utopia for some and an Orwellian nightmare for others. There was free education and healthcare, but also state surveillance and restricted freedoms. The omnipresent Stasi, East Germany's secret police, was a palpable entity, even for children who grew up under its shadow. Although Angela was academically gifted, her father's role as a pastor made her a subject of scrutiny. She quickly learned the art of discretion, which would later prove to be an asset in the political corridors of Berlin and Brussels. Angela was a talented student with a strong interest in languages and science, particularly physics and mathematics. Perhaps the world of numbers and theories provided her with a break from the complexities of human behavior and the unpredictability of social dynamics. She excelled in her studies, even winning youth competitions in physics. After finishing high school, she enrolled at the University of Leipzig, where she studied physics from 1973 to 1978. Angela was one of the few women in her class, which demonstrated her determination in a male-dominated field. Angela then began working at the Central Institute for Physical Chemistry at the Academy of Sciences in East Berlin. Here, she was not just another researcher. She was a young woman tackling questions about quantum chemistry, earning a doctorate for her groundbreaking thesis. During this time, Angela married fellow physicist Ulrich Merkel, taking his surname, although the marriage would later end in divorce. The scientific community was her world, but the world outside was changing, and it was about to draw her into a role she never expected. Angela's political awakening was a gradual process rather than a sudden realization. She was never part of the vocal student movements that captured the imaginations of young people in the West. However, she was keenly aware of the undercurrents of change seeping into East German society. The rise of Mikhail Gorbachev in the Soviet Union and the accompanying policies of glasnost and perestroika had lit a fire that slowly began to thaw the rigidity of the East German state. By 1989, protests, known as Monday demonstrations, began to spread throughout East Germany, with chants of "Wir sind das Volk," "We are the people," heard everywhere. It was a moment of historical reckoning, a turning point between eras, and Angela felt as though her destiny was calling her. Science could wait, but history couldn't. And so, as the Berlin Wall was about to fall, Angela Merkel stepped into the political arena, leaving behind the familiarity of academia for the unpredictability of public life. However, her formative years, the conversations at home, the essence of East German life, the allure of science, had all come together to form a multidimensional lens through which she would view the world and which the world, in turn, would use to view her. Part 2. The Fall of the Berlin Wall. As we continue to traverse the intriguing landscape of Angela Merkel's life, we arrive at a pivotal juncture, a moment so transformative that it not only redraws political boundaries, but also redirects individual destinies. The year is 1989, and the world watches in awe as Berlin becomes the epicenter of seismic shifts that would reverberate globally. The Berlin Wall, a concrete embodiment of ideological rifts and geopolitical tensions, was showing cracks. For decades, the Berlin Wall had stood as a grim demarcation between East and West Germany, a literal and figurative division that tore families apart and rendered Berlin a city of contrasts. The East lived under socialism and Soviet influence, while the West enjoyed capitalist democracy. By the late 80s, however, a wind of change was blowing across Eastern Europe. The Soviet Union, under the reformist leadership of Mikhail Gorbachev, had initiated policies that hinted at a softer stance towards its satellite states. Angela Merkel was at this point fully committed to her career as a physicist, ensconced in the laboratories of the Central Institute for Physical Chemistry in East Berlin. Her life was one of equations, research, and relative predictability. But even within the scientific community, whispers of change were pervasive. Colleagues discussed the Monday demonstrations in hushed tones. Research presentations were interspersed with murmurs about Gorbachev's latest reforms. On the evening of November 9, 1989, something extraordinary happened. Günter Schabowski, an East German government official, inadvertently announced that East Germans could visit West Germany effective immediately. The statement was supposed to be a controlled measure to ease tensions, but its unplanned dissemination caused a spontaneous surge of people towards the Berlin Wall. As East Berliners approached the checkpoints, the guards, overwhelmed and unclear on how to react, ultimately allowed them through. That night, Angela Merkel was in a sauna, a typical Thursday evening ritual for her. Upon hearing the news, she and a friend decided to cross into West Berlin. They joined the euphoric crowds, tasting the newfound freedom that for so long had been a distant dream. Merkel later described the experience as surreal, like walking through a picture. The events of that fateful night acted as a catalyst for Merkel. The fall of the Berlin Wall didn't merely signify the end of an era, it also marked the beginning of Merkel's departure from her scientific enclave. She joined Democratic Awakening, a small grassroots political group advocating for democratic reforms in East Germany. With her analytical acumen and unique experiences as both an East German and a woman in a predominantly male field, Merkel quickly caught the eye of political leaders. Merkel's bold stance during the scandal positioned her as a strong contender for the party leadership. In the 2005 elections, she ran a grueling campaign, but her calm demeanour and intellectual rigour impressed the voters, making her the first female Chancellor of Germany. Merkel's leadership style has been marked by compassionate conservatism, unwavering pragmatism, and steely resolve. Though dubbed as the Iron Frau, in contrast to Britain's Iron Lady Margaret Thatcher, Merkel's approach has been more analytical and consensual. Her ability to hold her ground in the face of crises, be it the European debt crisis or the migrant crisis, and her capacity to marry analytical prowess with a sense of humanity has earned her a reputation as a leader of substance. Merkel's unique blend of leadership qualities has steered Germany and Europe through challenges with an even hand, making her a respected figure on the global stage. Part 4. Chancellorship. The financial meltdown. Just 2 years into her first term, Merkel faced her first major challenge as a world leader, the global financial crisis of 2008. Banks were collapsing, markets were plummeting, and economies worldwide were struggling. Being the economic engine of Europe, all eyes were on Merkel. While many countries were offering financial stimuli, Merkel took a more cautious approach, preferring tightly regulated bailouts and austerity measures. Her decisions were met with resistance, not only from German citizens, but also from leaders of other struggling European economies. However, Merkel remained steadfast, and her scientific background was evident in her methodical approach to problem solving. By 2010, as Germany emerged with a relatively strong economy, many saw wisdom in her restraint. The European sovereign debt crisis. As if the global financial crisis wasn't enough, Merkel had to deal with yet another economic challenge, the European sovereign debt crisis. Countries such as Greece, Ireland and Portugal were on the verge of collapse. Merkel found herself at the centre of contentious debates around bailouts and fiscal responsibility. Ultimately, her push for a combination of financial aid and strict austerity measures framed the European response, showcasing her political prowess and knack for compromise. The 2015 migrant crisis. One of the defining moments of Merkel's leadership came in 2015, when Europe faced a massive influx of refugees and migrants, primarily from Syria. Merkel took a humanitarian stance that won her both praise and criticism. "We're schaffen das. We can do this," she declared, as Germany opened its doors to nearly 1 million refugees. Her decision sparked heated debates and stoked nationalist sentiments, but it also underlined Merkel's willingness to make unpopular decisions based on her moral convictions. The Trump era and a shifting world order. The geopolitical landscape underwent a significant reshuffle with the election of Donald Trump as the President of the United States in 2016. The relationship between Germany and the US, traditionally close allies, was tested. From climate change agreements to NATO contributions, Merkel had to defend multilateralism in a time of rising isolationism. Her calm yet firm exchanges with Trump made headlines, portraying her as a stalwart defender of the liberal world order. A pandemic leadership, COVID-19. As if fate had saved the most difficult trial for the last phase of her chancellorship, Merkel led Germany through the COVID-19 pandemic with a blend of scientific rigour and empathetic communication. Despite inevitable criticisms, Germany's response was widely viewed as measured and effective, mirroring Merkel's own leadership style. Part 5. Her legacy, knowing when to step down, the exit strategy. It's an old adage that all good things must come to an end, and Angela Merkel knew this well. Despite her enduring popularity, she announced in 2018 that she would step down as the leader of the Christian Democratic Union and would not seek re-election as Chancellor. The announcement was seen as a moment of self-awareness, a sign that Merkel understood the need for new blood in German politics, as well as a testament to her foresight in managing an orderly transition. Managing succession, the final test. Even as she prepared to leave politics, Merkel was faced with the challenge of ensuring her party's future. Succession is a tricky business in any arena, but especially so in politics, where egos and ambitions often collide. Merkel's chosen successor, Annegret Kramp-Karrenbauer, eventually stepped down as CDU leader due to a series of political setbacks. The search for a new leader became a subject of intense scrutiny, and the transition wasn't as smooth as Merkel might have hoped. Pragmatism. Over ideology. The legacy Merkel leaves behind a nuanced legacy. Dubbed the world's most powerful woman, her impact has been monumental. At the heart of it all is a pragmatic approach that often transcended political lines. She has been seen as a conservative, yet her policies often indicated a social flexibility not commonly associated with conservatism. Merkel's era will be remembered for managing to keep Germany largely stable in a period of immense volatility. A new paradigm, Merkelism. In a political climate where strongmen and divisive figures often grab headlines, Merkel presented an alternative leadership style, one that was reserved yet resolute, pragmatic yet guided by deep-rooted values. This mix of traits has led many to refer to her brand of politics as Merkelism, defined by a commitment to moderation, multilateralism, and a deep-seated sense of humanity. The woman behind the politics. Beyond the policies and political maneuverings, Merkel will also be remembered for who she was: an astrophysicist, an East German, a woman in a male-dominated arena, a leader who loved football and was known to enjoy a beer at state functions. These human touches not only endeared her to the German public, but also contributed to her image as a leader who was remarkably unremarkable, making her extraordinary tenure all the more fascinating. Part 6. Conclusion. As we close the book on this incredible journey through the life and times of Angela Merkel, we're left with a complex portrait of a leader who navigated her nation, and indeed the world, through an era of unparalleled challenges. She leaves behind not just a legacy of policies and political milestones, but also a standard of leadership characterized by its understated strength and compassionate pragmatism. Thank you for joining us on this captivating journey through the life of Angela Merkel. If you've enjoyed this video and want more deep dives into the lives of other fascinating figures, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. And that, dear viewers, is the incredible story of Angela Merkel. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell for more captivating biographies. Until next time.